Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're heading high up into the mist-covered Himalayas, specifically to the pristine Kumaon region of Uttarakhand in India. And we've got a truly wild one today. We're looking at a living tradition that bridges ancient faith, modern legal struggles, and, surprisingly, environmental conservation. It's a phenomenon that completely challenges how we define knowledge and authority. So let's just get right into it. I want you to just picture this for a second. Imagine a Supreme Court with absolutely no lawyers. No judges, and zero arguments. Nothing. If a system completely lacks all those fundamental pillars of our modern legal world, how in the world is justice actually served? How do people figure things out when all the usual pathways are just gone?
Well, here's the crazy answer. Up in the Kumaon Hills, justice is served directly by a goddess. Her name is Kotgari Devi. And get this, devotees literally submit their written pleas to her on official, government-issued legal stamp papers. Tucked away in Pakhu village in the Pithoragarh district, her temple acts as a literal divine courthouse. When the human legal system fails them, the locals just bypass it entirely and turn to a much more immediate, higher power.
Okay, let's dive right into this. A court without lawyers. Let's see how this Kotgari Devi system actually works on the ground. 5. That's the number of generations locals believe the goddess's absolute justice spans. And it's not just about punishing the guilty. She severely punishes anyone who makes a false accusation. Because this retribution is believed to be so absolute, literally echoing down the family line for over a century, people are incredibly careful. You absolutely do not approach this divine court with a lie. The stakes are just way too high.
So how does this actually play out? It usually goes like this. Step 1. The traditional courts fail, or maybe an injustice is just so deep that regular institutional laws can't fix it. Step 2. The victim completely bypasses those institutions, writes their grievance down on an actual legal stamp paper, and submits it right at the temple. And Step 3. The locals believe Kotgari Devi herself steps in and delivers the final undeniable verdict. It's this seamless, wild blend of modern bureaucracy, the stamp paper, and deep, ancient faith.
Moving on to the Kumaon cultural tapestry. To really get why a system like this doesn't just exist but thrives, we need to understand the world it was born into.
We are talking about an altitude of 3,260 meters. To put that into perspective, that's the height of the nearby Pakhu Top Trek. This area is incredibly remote. It's all breathtaking glaciers and untouched, pristine nature. This rugged, offbeat landscape really shapes the resilience and the deeply held beliefs of the people who live there. And you can see that mindset everywhere in their culture. They've got Ipan, which is this stunning geometric art drawn on walls and fabrics. There's the Kandali festival, celebrated by the local Shoka tribe only once every 12 years when a very specific flower blooms. They literally destroy the bushes to celebrate a legendary victory of their women over hidden enemies. It's amazing. And then you have the Hill Jatra, an elaborate masquerade all about pastoral and agricultural life. Basically, this is a society deeply tied to natural cycles, old myths, and unwritten rules. Which brings us to the goddess of justice herself. Right at the beating heart of this vibrant culture sits Kotgari Devi. She's recognized locally as a Vaishnavi manifestation of the Divine Mother, essentially the ultimate protector of her people.
It's super fascinating to trace how this whole tradition evolved over time. According to local lore, the temple was established centuries ago after the goddess came to villagers in their dreams. Historically, if you were wronged, you'd go to the temple and just shout verbal curses, called gat, demanding retribution. But here's the really cool part. In the modern era, that oral tradition adapted. Today, those cries for help are formalized onto those legal stamp papers we talked about. It proves this isn't some frozen archaic relic. It's a dynamic, living tradition. The physical temple itself really reflects this localized faith. It's built with modest, traditional Kumaoni stone and wood architecture. Inside, interestingly enough, a yoni symbol is worshipped, but per tradition, it is always kept carefully covered. And she's not up there alone either. The main temple is flanked by shrines for her two brothers, Surajmal and Churmal. So it's very much a local divine family unit. All right, let's shift gears to defying the written archive. We're going to look at some fantastic academic research by scholar Swastika Karki, which really highlights how Kotgari Devi totally upends our modern obsession with things having to be written down. To really grasp this, we have to talk about a core concept called epistemic validity. It sounds fancy, but it just means asking, what makes a source of knowledge actually accurate or authoritative? Like, who gets to decide what is true history or real law? In our modern world, we usually say, well, if it's written down by a big institution, it's valid. But Kotgari Temple completely flips that script.
Think about the contrast here. On the one hand, you have mainstream canonical archives, written documentation, closely guarded by institutional gatekeepers. It's very rigid. On the other hand, you have these living oral traditions, like the rituals of Kotgari Temple, local folklore, and deep cultural memory. For centuries, the academic world has pretty much ignored these living oral traditions in favor of the written archives. And this is exactly why this matters so much. Kotgari Temple's living traditions actively push back against that archive centricity. The massive power and authority she actually holds over her community proves that valid binding knowledge goes way beyond what's printed in a textbook or a legal code. The villagers' rituals demand a seat at the table, proving that oral history is a totally valid source of truth.
Moving to faith, protecting the forest. Because the power of this tradition, it isn't just theoretical or legal. It has incredible, tangible impacts on the real world, especially the environment.
The locals' faith basically acts as an impenetrable shield for the forests. The way it works is remarkably simple. The villagers will dedicate a specific patch of local forest to the goddess. Instantly, it becomes sacred ground. And because of the absolute fear of divine retribution, remember that 5 generations of punishment we mentioned earlier? Literally no one dares to cut a single tree or even gather fodder from that area. Because they strictly adhere to this tradition, the ecosystem just thrives, completely undisturbed. It is literal grassroots conservation in action. And honestly, it's way more effective than a government no trespassing sign.
All right, let's wrap this up. We've looked at a remote Himalayan culture, a totally unconventional justice system, and some incredible environmental preservation, all anchored by one single goddess.
I want to leave you with this really powerful thought from the academic research we reviewed. It says, cultural memory demands inclusion and refuses to be erased in broader literary and cultural discussions. Kotgari Temple is so much more than just a local deity. She represents the undeniable power of people's lived experiences. It's a testament to a system of knowledge that operates beautifully outside the rigid confines of our paper-obsessed world.
Which brings me to a final question for you to chew on. If a living oral tradition can protect ecosystems and serve justice for a community better than modern institutions can, what other vital, unwritten knowledge out there are we completely ignoring? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and we'll see you in the next one.